Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Anthony Griffin, and we are here with Kokoro Unfiltered. So just a chat about life in Japan. So once again, I'm joined with Amelie and Ayano from Kokoro Media.
Ayane, yes.
Welcome, welcome. So for our newcomers, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. And Ayane, please start and introduce yourselves to our audience.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Ayane, and I'm from Japan. And I'm working in a digital marketing department and working with Amelie-san together in the same company. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And Amelie?
Yes, hi, I'm Amelie. I'm French and I'm the chief editor of Kokoro Media. And I've been living in Japan for about 9 years. And yeah, that's all for today.
All right, sounds good. And again, I'm Anthony. I'm a consultant and contributing writer to Kokoro Media. I've been living in Japan coming up on 12 years now, and I'm originally from California. So thank you all who are watching for checking us out. I'd like to remind you this is live, so if you do have questions, you can leave them in the comments on our Facebook page, and we'd be happy to answer them for you. So our topic today is basically money matters while living in Japan. So it's a broad topic, but we're just going to talk about money here as foreign residents and Japanese residents here in Japan. So let's get started. I'll just open the conversation to you two for tonight.
Yeah, so I think the way I spent money in France and the way I spend money now in Japan is quite different. So I've got lots of stuff to say, but maybe I would like to start to say that I tend to spend money in going out much more than I used to when I was in France. I guess one of the reasons is most Japanese people, they like to eat outside, but eating outside is way cheaper than it is in France. And so like in Japan, you can have a nice meal for the equivalent of maybe 10 or 15 euros. And while in France, I used to eat at home most of the time or at my job with a lunchbox or maybe sandwiches. So this is one of the big differences, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually used to eat at home a lot more when I was in the States, and I would actually cook a lot more when I was in the States because, believe it or not, I felt it was actually cheaper to cook there, where here, at least in Tokyo, there are a lot of fast and affordable options, even if you need to go out. So I definitely agree with you there. Ayane, any thoughts on what we're saying, or what is your experience?
I agree with Anthony and Amelie-san. I often go to a restaurant for lunch and dinner, maybe once a week or twice a week in Japan. But when I was in Melbourne, it was really expensive. Like for lunch, it cost around $20.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's maybe double.
Yeah,
yeah,
or
maybe.
triple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Japan, there are lots of budget restaurants and the quality is really good and taste is really nice. So we can go like easily. But when I was in Australia, like I tried not to go often and I tried like cook by myself.
Okay, so it seems like for all of us, despite our nationality, we tend to cook more and eat in, in other countries.
Yeah, and speaking of eating outside, I think maybe one of the other reasons I don't know how it is in the US or in Australia, but for example, in France, if you want to have party with your friends, usually, even if you live in a small apartment, you tend to invite people at home and do some kind of home party and cook for them, or everybody brings something. But in Japan, it's not so easy to invite people at your home. Uh, well, size is one of the reasons, but I think it's also cultural. People tend not to invite strangers or people they do not know very well to their homes. But in France, you can ask your friends to bring a friend you've not met yet. It's something that just people do, but I don't think Japanese people would appreciate that so much. So Japanese people tend to gather outside in restaurants or izakayas, and that's maybe one of the reasons why we socialize outside more. So of course, then you spend your money in such places.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's pretty much the same in the States. If you're an outgoing person, you know, people generally speaking are more willing to open their homes for social events. Yeah. Ayane, any comments on that? Are we accurate, or are we
Yeah.
stereotyping? What do you think?
I totally agree with you guys because we can I say we don't invite like someone like strange people, but like so and we need to clean up completely in the house when we invite someone. So but like how can I say it? So we wanna go out and eat outside together when we meet up with like friends or other people. Mm.
Okay.
Like eating outside seems easier than having
Yeah, and I
to
feel
clean
better.
up and prepare. Yeah. I
Yeah,
see.
and again, the prices are reasonable, you know, so it's really hard not to go out to an izakaya or, you know, a cool restaurant in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask you to this, speaking of money. So before I moved to Japan, or before I even started visiting Japan, you know, everyone told me, oh, Tokyo, it's super expensive and you're gonna go broke there. However, if you know what you're looking for and you're in the right areas, I find, you know, at least lunch in Tokyo is an incredible bargain. You know, if you just want something quick, you can drop into Yoshinoya or Otoya or something like that. However, even if you want, you know, a quality meal, a lot of the restaurants that have, you know, very expensive, elaborate dinners, they will give you maybe a great lunch for, you know, 1,200 yen or 1,000 yen. So that's been my experience. I find if you know what you're doing, eating out can be, at least for lunch, can be incredibly affordable and more affordable than, you know, a lot of places in the States. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, and I I had the same image about Japan prices before I came here. But I think the image of Japan being a very expensive country may be because it used to be the case like long time ago compared to other countries maybe, but no, it's pretty reasonable. And I think also the image of Japan as a very expensive country probably comes from the rent prices and maybe the transportation prices. So when you read articles about which cities in the world are the more expensive, well, Tokyo is in the list, but it used to be in the top ranking of the list. But in my experience and from what I hear from friends, the rent in Paris or the rent in London is as expensive as Tokyo and sometimes way more expensive than Tokyo, which is not the image I used to have.
Right.
So that may be one of the reasons.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I could say the same for parts of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York as well. Yeah. Right. Ayane, any thoughts on cost of living, be it food or rent or things like that in Tokyo?
I lived in Hiroshima, western of Japan, when I was a student, and everyone said like everything is really expensive in Tokyo. So I was really, how can I say, scared to live in Tokyo by myself. But when I came here, I noticed like maybe rent is expensive, more expensive than other areas. But for others, like food or like clothes, like everything is cheaper. So yeah, I felt like it's good to live in Tokyo if you like go shopping or like go eating.
Okay, so just to confirm, you're saying that food and clothing are cheaper here in Tokyo than Hiroshima?
Like not cheaper, like almost same, but like for clothes, there are lots of clothing shop in Tokyo. So like competitive, how can I say? Like
Oh yeah, it's competitive. So that
mm.
keeps the prices down.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Ayane, I have a question for you. Like in Hiroshima, what would be the price for a typical one room, small kitchen, bathroom kind of apartment?
Maybe less than 50,000 yen per month.
Okay. So
Wow.
in Tokyo, it would be, well, it depends where you live in Tokyo, but I have some friends who pay like 80,000 for this kind of apartment if they are like in a near a nice location.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that I'm glad you brought that up, and we can shift over to this topic. You know, we talked about food and clothing being affordable, but it seems like we can all agree that rent is expensive in Tokyo. And if you want to live here and you want some personal space, you should expect to pay. What are your experiences and thoughts with the price of living, like rent, for example?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, that Tokyo rent is expensive, that's for sure. But you can manage to find affordable places if you uh, choose your location very well. So I would have two main tips. The first tip is to be a little bit further from the center or the big centers, because what I heard was if you're inside the Yamanote line, which is the train line that circles Tokyo, if you're in the area inside, rent tends to be more expensive than if you're in the outside areas of the Yamanote line. So if you don't have much money, you may want to avoid being too close to the Yamanote line or inside the Yamanote line. That's one tip.
Okay.
Second tip is if you want to save money, living a little bit far from a station will save you money. The closest you are to the station, the more the rent will be expensive. So you will gain space and a little bit cheaper rent if you are willing to maybe take the bus for 5 minutes or walk a little bit to your home when you come back home.
All right. Yeah, I can't argue that. However, you have to assess, you know, your lifestyle. Do you mind having a longer commute and spending your day commuting, or do you mind being further away from the city center? So I certainly agree with you. And for people who are thinking about coming here, they have to weigh, you know, their rent versus those factors. Yeah. Ayane, any tips about finding an affordable apartment here in Tokyo?
I agree with Amelie-san. And one thing I was thinking was maybe first floor is much cheaper than like second or third floor.
Okay.
So if you want to live in a cheaper house, maybe it's better to find a first floor building, like first floor.
Okay. So how much can people save? Because I know a lot of people prefer the second floor, I guess, for safety. You know, but how much can you save on average if you choose something on the first floor?
Maybe around 5,000 yen.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
Mm.
All right. Any other tips? Ayane, Amelie? I mean, I
For
did think
rent or in general?
for one more for rent. I did think of something though. The age of your building.
Oh, yes, right.
That if you're willing to have an older building, which definitely has its drawbacks, you can save a lot of money. You know, newer construction, be it a house or an apartment, is prized here in Tokyo. There are very few historical buildings that people, you know, desire to live in. People like new things. So to add to your tips, the older your building, the better deal you're going to get. But then again, it's a trade-off. You might have some other problems with that kind of building as well.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about the age of the building. And Ayane, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reason why the rent is cheaper in older buildings is because Japanese people, they tend to prefer living in brand new buildings. Am I right?
Yes.
Why do you think people are really value new apartments way more than cheaper but a little bit older apartments? Is it because of the earthquake security or?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we have lots of earthquakes in Japan, so it's better to live in a new house because the building, like, style, how can I say, like, structure is better than like older one. And we like clean place, so we we want to live in a brand new house, maybe.
Okay, got it. Yeah, regarding houses, you know, I read this. There was a Bloomberg article going around, or some prestigious news article. I heard regarding houses, they're basically built to last for one family, you know, and in the States, certain houses, if your house is designed well or it's in a historic location, the value can go up over time and its desirability can increase. But here, you know, the land value hopefully goes up, but the value of the house itself decreases, and it's just not designed to be to last a long time. You know, if a new family buys the land, they're going to build their own house, and that's when they're going to have the maximum value. So I found that to be fascinating, and it's totally different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, I think people tend to rebuild houses every 70 years or something.
Okay.
And I agree, in France, we tend to keep buildings for a very long time. You just have a look at Paris, like the buildings have been there like for 200 years and people are still living in it. So, well, sometimes it does, some problems do occur, but that's one of the big differences, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, getting back to our theme of money, so we've talked about food, clothing, rent. Any other financial topics related to Japan that you'd like to discuss?
Transportation is
Yes.
expensive. I agree with that. The main difference with the system in France and the system in Japan is in France, usually if you take the metro or the bus, the price is fixed. You have a price for the ticket and it doesn't change. But in Japan, the further you go, the more expensive it becomes. So the prices tend to rise up very quickly. And the prices can vary also depending on which company is running the train or the metro. So JR is comparatively not so expensive, but some lines in Tokyo, like the line, I can't recall, the line that you can use to go to Odaiba, you know, the monorail kind of thing?
Yuri Kamoe?
Yes, this one is very expensive, for example.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid it if I can.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what surprises most tourists when they come here, the price of the train. If you want to go around Tokyo and visit a lot of things in the same day, you will notice that the price would rise up very quickly.
Yeah. I will say, as a resident coming from California, you know, I do save money on transportation. Where I'm from, you basically need a car to survive, and that can get expensive. You know, ownership, insurance, gasoline. Where here, yes, you know, the tickets are expensive, more expensive than other parts of the world, but overall, compared to car ownership, it actually saves me money. I'd still rather own a car if I could, um, but you know, I'm willing to pay the price. But for a lot of people who aren't, you know, car fans or aren't into driving, and they just want to get from point A to point B, you know, coming here to live, at least from places like California, you're going to save money. Yeah. How about Hiroshima, Ayane? Did you drive out there, or were you near the city center? What are your transportation stories?
I often used JR, so
Okay.
same as Tokyo. So the price is almost same. So I didn't feel like expensive, but maybe in other countries it's more cheaper, maybe.
How was it when you were living in Australia?
Yeah.
The price was same. Like there was zone 1 and zone 2. So if you take maybe for 2 hours, there was maybe around $4 or $5. I forgot about the price, but around that, like you don't have to like expensive money. You can just pay same amount of money for 2 hours and for a day.
Okay. Not
Yeah.
bad. Not bad. Yeah. Not bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, I did notice, coming back to Japan, and I'm not sure if this is still the case. I haven't been to Okinawa in a while, but I noticed the taxi fares are different depending on the part of the country you're in. So at least a few years ago, the last time I went to Okinawa, the taxi cab rates were a lot cheaper than here in Tokyo. So, you know, in the future, for people planning their trip, if they do want to save a little bit on travel and they like to use taxis, it's a good reason to kind of get away from Tokyo. You can stretch your budget a little bit.
Well, I didn't know that. I've been trying to avoid taxis everywhere I go in general. So it's good to know that in some places it's actually cheaper.
Yeah, if you end up in you know, a more remote place and you don't happen to have a rental car and you need the taxi, the good news is it might be cheaper than you expect. Yeah.
And what do you guys feel about groceries? Do you think it's more expensive to buy your groceries here than in other countries? What I noticed is when I came to Japan, I felt groceries was maybe a little bit more expensive than France. But then last time I came back to France, I was surprised to see all the prices had risen up quite a lot. And that in the end, it was not so different anymore, especially regarding fruits and vegetables. So Japanese fruits and vegetables, especially fruits, they're quite expensive.
Yes. Yeah.
But last time I came back to France, I noticed that the prices of fruits had risen up a lot, and it was not so different anymore. I was a little bit surprised and sad about it. So I was wondering which things you felt were expensive and which things you felt were maybe cheap.
Yeah, I still feel that it's cheaper to, you know, cook at home and buy grocery store ingredients in the States, or at least where I'm from. And the main reason is that, you know, fruits and vegetables and healthy items, you know, superfoods, things like that, those are all cheaper and they come in larger quantities. Also, I noticed Japan doesn't really do bulk discounts. So oftentimes if you buy like a 6-pack or 12-pack of something, the price is the same as if you bought those 12 items individually. So I feel unless you have a family and you're cooking for a family, maybe the price is reasonable. But you know, if you're just a couple or a single person, it's kind of expensive to get good ingredients, at least here in Tokyo. Ayane, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for foods, I feel it's really expensive in Japan. And when I was in Melbourne, it was sold by weight, so it was really easier to buy like one foods or like two. But in Japan, like the quality is really good, but it's really expensive. So yeah, fruits is expensive. But for vegetables, when I checked the bean sprouts in Melbourne, it was maybe around $2, so 200 yen. But in Japan, maybe 20 yen or 30 yen. So it's totally different. So it depends on the ingredients.
Yeah, absolutely. It really depends on your diet and the ingredients that you want to use. Definitely. All right.
It's like the bean sprouts, like as Ayane said, it can be 30 yen, 50 yen if you have better quality sprouts. It's like the cheap vegetable that broke students tend to buy a lot because it's really cheap. And so that's one tip. If you're broke, you can still buy vegetables. You can buy the bean sprout. And also another tip, if you go to the supermarket to do your groceries and you want to save money, is to try to buy stuff a little bit late, not really at night, but maybe 1 or 2 hours before the shop closes, especially for meat and fish. That's when you get all the discounts, because the shop is going to close and they're going to throw everything away, so they have to sell everything. So you can get maybe sometimes even bento, you can get like maybe 50% off reduction. So that's a good time to buy stuff, and then you can freeze them and cook them later. So that's one tip that people tend to ignore when they arrive in Japan.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because that's a great way to get some deals. Come after the dinner time rush and you'll start seeing those discounts appear. So and then speaking of that too, it also depends on which store you go to. There's a wide range of grocery stores, you know, premium to discount. So that's going to have a big impact on your budget too. If you live in Roppongi and there's only like Seijo Ishii and all of these high grade supermarkets, it's going to be expensive. But if you live a little further away from the city center, you're going to have a lot of discount options as well. Okay, so I wanted to bring up one more topic for today, and I'm going to just mix all of these 2 or 3 topics together into one. But I want us to talk and maybe share some advice for people who are thinking about living here. And if you live here, if you become a resident and you're working, you're going to have to pay into the health insurance system. You're going to have to pay into, you know, your local tax system. Your company, if you're working full-time, will take income tax out of your payment. And then you're also, either through your company or on your own, you're going to have to pay into the pension or, you know, Social Security system as well. And personally, I find as someone who's self-employed, those costs add up significantly. I don't think it's a huge difference between when I lived in the States, but it's definitely something I have to pay attention to. And it definitely takes a bite out of my income, so to speak. So any thoughts on those expenses, especially here in Tokyo?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And I'm not an independent worker. I'm working in just like a regular company, but it's the same. The taxes and pension, health insurance, it represents a big part of my salary that just goes away. Well, not really away, but you know what I mean.
It
And
goes somewhere.
so it's good. The first year you arrive in Japan, understand that you're going to pay a lot of money in this system. And if you're using the national health insurance system that you can get at the city office, for example, you have to understand that it's calculated on the resources of your previous year. So on your first year in Japan, it's going to be quite cheap because you are not living in Japan yet. But on the second year, you will see that the price will rise up significantly. And I've seen many, many people wonder why they have to pay so much, although the year before it was really cheap. And that's because, well, maybe you earned a lot of money, so you have to pay a lot for your pension and insurance. So make sure, even if you have a comfortable revenue, make sure to save money for your next year and your pension, health insurance, if you intend to stay more than 1 year in Japan, or you will have a bad surprise.
Yes, and to add to that, if any of you out there are thinking of working independently after working for a company, remember, if you are working for a company and your salary is good, and then you start a business or start working for yourself and your salary for the first year or so goes down, you're going to still be paying, you know, the local taxes and the health insurance rates on your previous higher salary. So if you're planning to start a sole proprietorship or work for yourself, you have to budget in those fees that you'll owe from the previous year. So thanks for bringing that up.
Ayane, until recently you were a student. Have you noticed some changes in your health insurance and taxes?
Yeah, I didn't know much about tax when I was a student, but now, like, I noticed we are paying lots of money, like we are paying taxes. But you know, we just need to follow the government rule or like company rule. So like, I think most of the Japanese people don't know about the tax. We are just paying, but we don't know where we are paying for or like what's for. But yeah, you know, you guys know well.
Well, I don't know if I can say I know well, but it's just like experience. You realize how it works.
Yeah, and I didn't pay it when I worked for Japanese companies. I didn't pay attention so much because, unlike America, if your income is below a certain amount and you are a full-time employee at a Japanese company, you don't have to file income taxes. You don't have to go to the tax office. It's just automatically taken care of for you. So, yeah, I didn't always pay attention to it, but even in my first job in Japan, my company allowed me to do, you know, side work. And as soon as I started, you know, having a side hustle and doing work on the side, then all of a sudden I had to file taxes and go to the tax office. So that's one of the reasons I started paying attention to that. But Ayane, you're right. I think most people, if you're working for a company, you don't really notice because it's all automatic. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, real quickly, recently I've been speaking with a lot of people interested in studying abroad as students. Ayane, are there any financial tips for incoming foreign students who are going to study in Japan? Are there any warnings or advice you have for them?
Advice for
For
international
students,
people to Japan?
yeah, international students who want to study in Japan.
Maybe to save money, it's better to work in a restaurant because they will offer some food at night or for lunch. So like most of the Japanese people are saving food money, food cost to, and working in a restaurant and get some food.
Yeah, when I was a student in Fukuoka, like almost 15 years ago, most of my friends they did that. They had these part-time jobs in restaurants at night because you can be provided with food. So you earn money and you get food. So it's double reward for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, pardon my ignorance about school and work laws, because I came to Japan as I was turning 30. But you know, Amelie, can foreign students also work part-time and you know still keep their visa? Is it legally okay?
Yes, I think if you come as a student, you need to ask for some kind of special permission to work, but you can work under a student visa, but you have to do something extra, I think. I think there's some extra paperwork. Maybe my information is a bit old, so people please check on that. But you can do that. Many of the Chinese students that were with me at the university, they had part-time jobs at night, and sometimes the next day they would be sleeping on the desks because they worked really late the night before. But it's something that's very unusual in Japanese universities because students sometimes work very late in restaurants.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's possible. Just for viewers who are interested in that, they should check out check the details and make sure they go through the right steps.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, I've brought up all the topics that were on my mind. Is there anything else that you two would like to cover?
I think I've said everything.
Okay, well, let me try this. I want to close with a final question for our viewers, or a final piece of advice from all of us. So just for our final question, for those who want to either travel or live in Japan and they are worried about expenses and money, and maybe that's holding them back or making them hesitate, what message would you say to someone like that?
First, well, as we mentioned, Japan is maybe not as expensive as you think it is. Well, it also depends on the changing rates at the time you come, so you also may want to check that. But there are many tips to save money, and you also have many websites that provide ways to calculate how much your trip is going to cost, for example. So we are living in the era of internet, so you have all the tools to plan everything very nicely. So it's not impossible, even if you think it's very expensive. It's gonna be okay. Just do the kind of nice preparation before you come here.
All right, thank you. Ayane, your final advice?
Maybe you need to find out, like, there are lots of budget restaurants and budget hotels, and where the quality is really good. So it's better to check out the reviews on the internet, and maybe there are lots of information on the website. So yeah, and ask Japanese people. Maybe.
Okay. So make some Japanese friends and ask them, you know, for financial advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll add to what you and Amelie said it with a travel tip. I know we can't really travel now, but one day we are going to again. And for those of you who are thinking about coming to Japan and you're worried about your budget, I would say don't be afraid to just plan your trip on your own. You know, you don't always need a, you know, package tour or a travel agent. The whole country is really easy to get around in. It's safe. So You don't have to have everything planned so precisely. You can be flexible, you can build your plan yourself. And that's one way my friends and I would save money traveling here, you know, before I lived here. So with that, those are our final thoughts for money in Japan. And for all of you watching, for more tips and more advice, you know, check out our website, first of all, which you can see in the background behind Amelie there. We've got a nice QR code for you. And then please follow us on social media. Right now, we're very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And if you'd like to be reminded on a regular basis of our content, be sure to also check out our email newsletter. So with that, again, everyone, wherever you are in the world, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do keep in touch, do share your suggestions and feedback, and we all hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.